Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. This guy's been pissing off Rogers fans since 2016. Here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Ain't that the truth, man? I tell you what, I've had so many Packer fans throughout the years, especially Aaron Rodgers fans, really take me to task for not being as big of a homer as they are, because of course we know that Aaron Rodgers needs to be like, what was his name from Saturday Night Live? Stuart Smalley, because you need words of affirmation if you're Aaron Rodgers, right? You need to really be told that you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. Well, maybe not in the state of Wisconsin, Chad. This morning's poll question up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, as well as our Facebook group page, which just keeps continuing to grow, is simply this. After what we saw from fucking Tom Brady last night, his old ass, and the way that we saw Aaron Rodgers limp off the field in many ways against the Detroit Lions, which of these quarterbacks, Chad, is going to retire first? Because we talked to our Green and Gold insider, Joe DeGuano, yesterday. He mentioned former Packers president, vice president Andrew Brandt, saying that he thinks that Aaron Rodgers could actually step away after the end of this season. I've been of the opinion that Tom Brady's going to actually have to die a physical death on the field before he is actually retired. But what we saw last night from Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, and Chad, you and I were going back and forth about this over the text thing. Man, this did not look good. And I got to tell you, it's kind of like when Willie Mays played his final season and was running for the outfield and just tripped over himself when you saw, Joe Namath do whatever it was that he was doing at the end of his career, when you even saw the likes of, Michael Jordan with the Wizards. That in comparison to this looks fantastic. Comparative to the way that Tom Brady is looking, guys and gals. This is a question that I think bears answering. Who's going to retire first, Brady or Rodgers? Where do you land on that just off the top?
Who do I think, or who do I want to?
Who do you think retires first?
I honestly don't know. It's a tough question because they're both similar in the sense that the game is become an obsession, specifically for Brady. So I would say probably, if anything, Aaron Rodgers would retire first. Brady's got a problem. This is a problem. When you see a guy last night get injured, so we had another guy on Monday Night Football injured. You're 45 years old. You not look at that and reflect and go, geez, that could be me, and I'm not going to bounce back as quick as Gage is going to bounce back. You know what I mean? And if he does bounce back, he's got a concussion, possible neck injury. That's serious, right? They had to take him off in a cart.
Yeah.
A couple Monday nights ago, we had Damar Hamlin's situation where they took him off in an ambulance. This guy's obsessed. He cannot. Obviously, his marriage is over with because of it, right? You're married to, a supermodel that makes more money than you do, and you throw that all away because of your obsession with football. So I would have to say if it'd be Aaron Rodgers, and but I don't know, maybe last night, because that was bad. Honestly, the way it was being set up, and I texted this to a couple people, it was being set up for Tom Brady to be the hero in the second half, and he just couldn't get it done. And in a large part, it wasn't all on him, obviously. The offensive line was garbage. Absolutely garbage. That was the tail of the tape. It was both offensive lines. The Cowboys' offensive line blew the Buccaneers off the ball almost every single play. It gave Dak Prescott, it seems like, hours in the pocket.
Yeah.
Where the Buccaneers, their offensive line was garbage. And so obviously Tom Brady struggled, but you could tell he was frustrated. You could tell that his arm isn't quite the same, and he just didn't have that magic that we were all expecting. I know I was.
The narrative that you've been building this NFL season about the scriptwriters of America, the NFLPA scriptwriters of America, and how it is they'd like to deliver us this playoffs did, in fact, give us what could have been one of those storybook sort of comebacks, right? But Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I thought this was the biggest ballyhoo, could not stop the pass rush of Dallas. As a matter of fact, there were many times in the first and second half where guys like Micah Parsons just went completely unblocked.
Yeah.
Just completely unblocked. If you're Todd Bowles, who made his first appearance as a head coach in the postseason, you're probably looking for another job, because, and I don't want to say that it's a gut reaction or a knee-jerk reaction, but I just don't think that Todd Bowles is a very good NFL head coach. He's a great coordinator, which many people are. They're great coordinators, not necessarily great head coaches. He's looked over his skis the entire season. Brady has been publicly frustrated with him. I don't think that Tom's ability, much like Aaron Rodgers, has diminished completely to the point where they're not one of the top 32 NFL quarterbacks, right? Like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are still better than Davis Mills. They're still better than numbers of quarterbacks in this league, but that's not what we're used to with these guys, right? These are two of the greatest of all time, and we're not used to seeing these incredible and prolonged struggles. Tom Brady last night, and it wasn't just the offensive line, Chad. He was sailing the fucking ball. He was throwing into the dirt. This just didn't feel like Tom Brady of 2017. It didn't feel like Tom Brady of 2018. I have a feeling that because Aaron Rodgers is a way different kind of person and has a lot of interests outside of football, I have a feeling that Rodgers will retire first, but I don't necessarily know that that will be this upcoming season or even the season after. Because you've mentioned Tom Brady's problem. As long as there is a team willing to give Tom Brady a paycheck and a uniform, I think Tom Brady's going to play professional football.
Well,
I really do.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be. And Morning Woods checking in Byron Leftwich has been fired from Tampa Bay. And you saw two guys. So you saw two guys. One guy just got fired. Maybe Bulls gets fired, but you saw two other guys that padded their resume last night. And Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. They both had great games and there was effusive praise all over them from the announcers last night. And obviously they both are out there interviewing. And so I could see them possibly moving on, both of them. Kellen Moore with his mouth open half the time, which is always fun. But kind of a local product. He came from Prosser, Washington.
Oh, okay. And he played at Boise State, right?
He played at Boise State. You know, I was able to cover Boise a couple times in the Las Vegas Bowl and interview him. And he's kind of a hick. Good kid, though. You know what? I think both of those guys are probably going to move on, and good for them. And you've talked about this before. Brady in Vegas makes a lot of sense. I could see that happening.
I could too. It's like
there's some other teams that would take him on, I'm sure.
Well, think about this. Vegas and Vegas has changed its narrative quite a bit now. It's a team with a lot of pro sports. But when I was growing up and when you first moved to Vegas, 20 plus years ago, Vegas was a place where great artists went to die. They went there to ruin and finish the rest of their careers with a fat paycheck, a bunch of buffet in their stomach, and possibly some Quaaludes, right? Like that's the idea that you got going to Vegas. I'm going to work in a place that smells vaguely of 1960s ass and a lot of carpet cleaner, big cigarette smoking going on here. And I'm going to do my lounge show and I'll be bumming this around for the next few years. Listen, there's a lot of worse places to retire if you're a professional celebrity than Las Vegas. There really are. I think that makes sense. I got to ask this question, though, and this is just an out loud ponderance. You watch what you watch of Tom Brady last night, and I realize he's still one of the top 32 quarterbacks, but he is 45,000 years old. Who wants him to be the quarterback next year? Is like Tom Brady going to be markedly better than Jared Stidham? I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
That's the question that if I'm an NFL general manager, if I'm an NFL owner, I've got to be asking myself, not to say he still can't play, much like Aaron Rodgers. There's still some gas left in the tank, but it's starting to sputter. It's like when you're just below that quarter tank and you're thinking, yeah, we might be able to get to that. We might be able to get to that gas station. But if we blow past this, we're running out of this gas and we're just going to be broken down and stranded on the side of the road. All right, guys and gals, we're going to take our first little pause here on the Sports Carnival, brought to you by the Recovery Room, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center Studios, BetUS, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, Preferred Insurance, and the Midwest Mortgage Team. When we come back, Chad, let's take a little break from football because we'll have a lot more football conversation. Matt Janus, UWL head coach, is going to be joining the program, and we'll get into an interesting Bears conversation. I want to touch on the Bucs yesterday because Janus sat out his third consecutive game, but Drew Holiday did something he has never done before. Milwaukee does get a win, so stay tuned. We'll get into that here on the Sports Carnival. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hey, it's time for koozies, hot tub, and jacuzzis in downtown La Crosse. Whether you're looking to relax after a hard day's work, or maybe you're up for a little soaking poke, we got you covered. That's right, when you're in the market for a hot tub or jacuzzi, all you have to do is call the Coos. 555-SOAK. That's 555-7625.
Soak and poke is a slang term for hot tub sex.
Please practice responsibly.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, this is the Sports Carnival. Don't blame your stupidity on us. Take that up with your parents. Here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Yeah, or do what parents do of stupid children, blame the teachers.
Oh, sure.
Right? I mean, that's what you do. You've got to remember that what you said last week still rings true. If it's really, I can't remember what your exact quote was, but if it's too hard for you to contemplate, it's somebody else's fault. Much like your bad parenting or stupid children. Somebody else's fault. Hey, speaking of stupid children, this guy's cut above the rest. 18 years old today, John Carney. Congratulations. Happy birthday. You made it.
Happy birthday.
Made it to adulthood. Now, Chad, the real fun gets to begin. You have to sign up for selective service. I got to tell my draft card as I filled it out that I was 4H because, was that 4H or 4F? I was too injured to play because of basketball. I couldn't play in the Army. I was like, nope, sorry, can't do it for you guys. I'd have to say no to that. But he's got to sign up or else, you get in trouble. Now he's legally responsible for all of his own actions, which, to be fair, does relieve a lot of stress off of me. I've really thought about this for some time. When you're 16, 17, you're big enough to make real fucking mistakes, like big problems. But then it becomes my fault. Or at least in some way, shape, or form, I have to actually be legally burdened by it. No longer. John, congratulations. You are now a legally responsible adult in and of yourself. Happy birthday, buddy. 18 years old. I feel a teensy bit, not a lot, but I feel a teensy bit aged today, Chad, a little long in the tooth.
I can see that. Yeah. Soul Surfer checking in. Says, I'm curious, that Bears conversation, is it going to include sucking?
Yeah, no. And we'll get into that because, listen, the Bears.
That's classic.
The Bears are going into this offseason, guys and gals, with a boatload of money, the number 1 overall draft pick. And I've got a particular idea with a disgruntled NFL football player and a franchise that's looking to rebound. I've got an idea, and I want to wash this over with a real Bears fan, Matt Janus, who will join the program coming up at 8:30 here on the Sports Carnival in the Carousel. Listen, we'll talk a lot more Rodgers and Brady. The NFL football season still consumes us. But, Chad, I want to spend a couple of minutes here on the Milwaukee Bucks this morning because yesterday, Martin Luther King Day, we saw a big slate of games. Tipped off at 12, we saw the likes of Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies playing one of the signature MLK games because, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King was from Memphis. That's where he actually got shot and killed. And so Memphis always plays a big role on Martin Luther King Day. And the Grizzlies, they won their 10th consecutive ball game. Ja Morant, by the way, is fantastic. And NBA power rankings, I believe, have the Memphis Grizzlies now the top team in the NBA by virtue of defensive rating, offensive rating. They're a stacked team. Of course, the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be in it till the very end. All right. This is going to be a team in the Eastern Conference that we know will most likely be vying for an Eastern Conference championship, probably playing against the Celtics if all things hold. Giannis sat out his 3rd consecutive game, the 2 losses against the Miami Heat, and yesterday's win against the Pacers with what the team is calling knee soreness. I don't get too concerned about that in this particular portion of the season. Giannis has been taking what I think is load management time off for the last couple of years, but we do have to take a look at the injuries for the Bucks and ask ourselves if they're going to start to pile up in any significant way. If that is the case, like with any team, you start to have big misses. Well, yesterday, Drew Holiday, he stepped right up to the plate, okay? The game was at 1:30 here in the Central Time Zone. Bally Sports Net, Bucks are back on tonight, and we'll talk about that as well. Drew Holiday had the first 35 10-plus assist a game in his career, went for 35 and 11. Bucks beat the Pacers 132-119. This is the 3rd straight double-double for Drew Holiday. Now, we've talked about Chris Middleton's injury, Chad, really impacting the Bucks, and it is an impact for the Bucks. I don't know if there is a more impactful player outside of Giannis than Drew Holiday. As a matter of fact, if Giannis is playing with Drew Holiday and without Chris Middleton, I'll take a chance with those two guys. I would roll with those two and let Joe Ingles, Pat Connaughton, and the rest take over for what it is that Chris Middleton brings you. Do you think that we overstate the impact of Drew Holiday, or are we feeling this is kind of correct? Drew Holiday, while he's not the team's engine, because that's Giannis, as you called out, he could be the straw that stirs this drink. And like Matt from the recovery room asked us in a poll question recently, what would you rather be, the straw that stirs the drink or the engine? In this case, it looks like the straw that stirs the drink because the Bucks are still able to get a victory. It was a home win, of course, but still able to get a necessary victory. And he had a really, really big game.
Yeah, I think for this season for sure, but I think even in a normal season, even when Middleton is healthy, I would say he's the number 2, honestly. Yeah. Even though everybody always, does the Batman and Robin with Giannis and Middleton, and then obviously I think Brook Lopez is a third guy that's played really, really well, especially this year. and then Bobby Portis and guys like that off the bench. But yeah, Drew Holiday is amazing. And when you're missing your, best player and perhaps one of, if not the best player in the NBA on a nightly basis, 3 nights in a row, somebody's got to pick it up. And obviously, clearly he's done that. And not only does he do it on the offensive end, which is impressive, but he's a great defensive player too. I think that's the other thing about the Milwaukee Bucks that is so impressive is that they've got a lot of two-way players. They all play really pretty good defense, which is great, especially when you're down a guy. Middleton is turning into street clothes, 2 here. It's like at some point, when are you going to get back on the court? I mean, how long does this continue? I mean, it seems like, is he ever going to not be injured? Or I still don't understand exactly what it is specifically.
So it was a knee injury. There was a problem with, I think, a hip and a foot that Middleton was going
multiple,
through. Yeah,
right?
They're starting to become multiple injuries, but we basically have it, if we're going to use a hockey overall term, lower body injuries for Chris Middleton. And I think it's fair. Yeah. Listen, because Chris Middleton's not exactly what you would consider to be a premier elite level athlete in the NBA, right? Like to the rest of humanity, he is. But in the NBA, Middleton's not a premier elite level athlete. So you do wonder if some of the recovery that goes in to some of these other athletes, if maybe that eludes him a little bit. I don't know that to be sure, but yeah, you do sort of wonder when he comes back. The two-way acumen of Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis, 21 points and 11 rebounds, by the way, last night for the Bucks. And even the likes of Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, George Hill off the bench had 9 points. These are what you need to see from a team in Milwaukee that is at 28-16 right now, still having to make a real they're still having to make a real push here in the Eastern Conference. Nothing's going to be easy. I think that Middleton, while he's a great complementary piece now to Drew Holiday and to Janus Antetokounmpo, has to be sort of looked at, Chad, as that 3rd/4th guy. Because I would actually say at this point, Bobby Portis is probably closer to your 3rd, or Brook Lopez is probably closer to your 3rd best player than perhaps even Chris Middleton is. And really for Bobby Portis and Lopez, it's the extra defense, right? Like Portis grabs rebounds, Lopez not so much, but of course we know what he does down low in changing shots, blocking shots, and really clogging up that middle. I'm not going to push panic button on anything with the Bucks. Again, they're right there in the thick of it. Number 2 in the Eastern Conference. Giannis sitting out 3 games. That's not going to be something that we'll anticipate going forward. But this is where you can see seasons sort of go off the rails. When you've got players that are just not able to play. What's the old football term? Availability is your best ability, right? So being out there is really one of the best abilities that you can have. And when you're just not out there, it can start to have some dramatic and some trickle-down effects. I don't think that yesterday was anything, to really look at too hard. The Pacers weren't playing at full strength either. Tyrese Halliburton, their leading scorer, who is a product of the state of Wisconsin, played at Iowa State. He wasn't out there. TJ McConnell had a monster game off the bench at 29 points for Indiana, but they weren't playing at full strength either. I guess where I'm going with this is this. If in fact Milwaukee finds, and I wouldn't say it would be this season, but if in fact Milwaukee finds that they cannot get over the hump with Middleton, with Holiday, with Giannis and Lopez, I would trade Chris Middleton. I would start to make a package trade for Middleton. Yes, he's got a big salary, but it's not so bad that you couldn't get other pieces. And he's not so old or so past the prime of his career where you couldn't return some assets. That would be what I would start to look at. Because again, how many games is he going to miss? At what point does your, quote, second best player become available for you? And if you recall the Chicago Bulls when Scottie Pippen, and this was a different situation, but when he was having injuries and then wanted to sit out, we saw how bad they were, right? At some point, even a great player like Giannis, a great player like Michael Jordan is going to struggle without their second best player on the court. Fortunately for the Bucks, they've got Holiday. But if in fact Middleton can't make significant progress this year and become that guy again, I would at least entertain the idea of possibly moving from him, as much as Bucks fans wouldn't want to say that or see that perhaps.
Well, if they do an expansion, the NBA in Seattle, let's say, gets a new team, maybe they could rename themselves because I don't know if they would go back to the Sonics. Maybe they call themselves the Seattle Street Clothes. You put Middleton on there, right?
Uh-huh.
You put Street Clothes on there. Joel Embiid on there. A couple other guys. You could put together a pretty solid team that would be very dapper on the bench. Unfortunately, probably wouldn't be very good on the court, but they would look awesome on the bench.
They would. Best dressed bench in the NBA.
Yes.
They would. Street Clothes.
Seattle Street Clothes. Did you see it happening? Speaking of great teams in the East, did you not see Boston Celtics win?
Yes, I
Big
did.
win. Jason Tatum, who I still think is in the lead for MVP. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, I'm a bit biased. Throws down 51 points.
Yeah, and
Had a
by the
great
way,
game.
that 51 points last night represented his fifth 50-point-plus game of his career. Guess who he surpassed yesterday?
Who, Larry?
There you go. Now we get a Larry Bird reference here on the program. Jason Tatum's 51 surpasses Larry Bird his fifth time. Again, we think about these 40 and 50 pieces guys are putting up, and this is sort of becoming a commonplace thing, right? Like 40-point nights used to be like, whoa, that's really something. LeBron James, by the way, yesterday scored 45 points, had 8 rebounds on a back-to-back as the Lakers beat the Rockets 140-132, excuse me. The scoring is just getting so crazy now. It's not exactly as jaw-dropping as before, but for Boston Celtics lore, to have a guy like Jason Tatum surpassing Larry Bird in so many significant ways, yeah, that means something. And Boston, by the way, beating the Hornets yesterday. I mean, again, the Hornets who don't play defense are 33 and 12 right now. I mean, when we look at the standings for the Eastern Conference, you know, the Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets are tied right now. I said Milwaukee was second. They're currently, because of a percentage point, in third place, but they're both 4.5 games behind Boston. You know, you look at this Eastern Conference, this isn't the Eastern Conference of 5 or 10 years ago, right? I mean, it really isn't. Even the Knicks at 25 and 20 are sitting there at number 6 in the conference. You've got Miami, Indiana, Atlanta, Chicago. These are all teams that would be in the postseason or at least that play-in tournament. And we haven't talked about the Sixers. They can be dangerous. Cleveland, even though it looked like Donovan Mitchell got a little injured yesterday, they could be a problem. The Eastern Conference is going to be tough. And back to the conversation about the Bucks, I'm like, dude, if Middleton's not going to play ever, right, or if he's going to be that diminished, and I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater right now, but if this goes on throughout the season and Milwaukee isn't able to get to the conference finals or the championship and can't win, I would at least start to kick the tires on what his market value is, because there could be some younger pieces, you know, possibly an expiring contract. Milwaukee's going to have to they're going to have to think about that because they paid Janus, they paid Holiday, they paid Middleton. You can't pay everybody, right? This is a pretty hard cap league, not as much as the NFL, but it's still pretty hard cap. I would at least start to explore that, because it doesn't look like, and it doesn't feel like to me, Boston's going anywhere anytime soon. Jason Tatum's on the rise. Jaylen Brown is on the rise. You put in pieces like Brogdon, and Al Horford signed a little extension this year. You know, Semi Ojeleye, well, maybe he's not with Boston right now, but, you know, Grant Williams, this is a team in Boston that's got a lot of young players that are on the come. I would want to, if I'm Milwaukee, hold nothing back when it's in pursuit of a championship. Now, to that end, I did pick up another article yesterday, another little link. Adrian Wojnarowski says that the Milwaukee Bucks are currently active in the trade discussions to try to land Phoenix Suns' Jay Crowder. The Phoenix Suns, by the way, are starting to really slip off, okay? The Memphis Grizzlies fucking destroyed the Phoenix Suns yesterday. Destroyed them. Phoenix might be looking at a bit of a rebuild. Chris Paul is, again, he's like Tom Brady's age, 45,000. That's not going to be a forever thing. If Jay Crowder is a guy the Bucks are able to land, that would be a big help, because he does helps on defense, good three-point shooter. That would be the kind of guy I think Milwaukee would really, really benefit from this year. And then you can see what you have to do going into next season.
Yeah, that would be a huge pickup if they pick up Crowder. I mean,
massive.
Yeah, and who would they have to give up for that?
Well, I think that in that particular case, you'd probably be looking at an expiring contract of Serge Ibaka, who has been away from the team. Serge Ibaka is now not even with the Milwaukee Bucks. So you could probably get rid of that contract. Again, Phoenix is going to have to look at where they're at salary cap table-wise as well, because they've got Booker. They just signed DeAndre Ayton this last offseason. So they've got some considerations there. But I could see, listen, if you need to make a big sacrifice, does that mean you let go of a guy like Grayson Allen? Would he fit in with that Phoenix Suns team? He might. Would you let go?
Well, he was in the talks before. They talked about moving Grayson Allen before. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, I'm glad they kept him. I like having that kind of feisty guy on my team.
Who'd you rather have, Grayson Allen or Jay Crowder?
Well, probably Crowder, but I'm just saying. I mean, if you could keep him, I would keep him
for sure.
But I can understand if there's value there, and you weigh it the way I weigh it. I think that you make the move. I'm just saying overall, I like having that kind of feisty. I'd rather have that kind of feisty guy on my team than have to play the guy.
No doubt. I think that goes without saying. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
He's annoying.
Yes, and he's a good shooter. I'll take annoying good shooters any day of the week. Those guys make the world go round. Ask Steve Kerr. It's one of those things that you really do need on a team. And listen, I don't know that Milwaukee right now would necessarily want to give up Grayson Allen, but if there could be a package for the Bucks, I could see a Serge Ibaka moving out. I could even see a younger piece. Jordan Norwa is a guy that had a decent game yesterday, couple of years into the league. I could see something like that and perhaps a future first-round pick because Milwaukee, as long as Janus is on the court, is going to be picking in the late first round. Milwaukee's done a good job with their late first-round picks. Marchand Beauchamp looks like he's got something, right? There's something there. Jordan Norwa was playing at least some sort of a role, but I could see the Bucks making a move off of that to be determined because I'm not entirely sure that Phoenix is packing it in yet here, but I'm looking at the Phoenix Suns. They're 21-24 this season. They're not even the NBA play-in tournament right now. If the play-in tournament started today, they're on the outside looking in. Portland, Minnesota, Utah, Golden State, they're all in before the Phoenix Suns.
Well, and Phoenix is traditionally, at least it has been in the past, more of a regular season team, and then they struggle in the playoffs sometimes. So if they're struggling in the regular season, they might not even get to the playoffs. And if they do get the playoffs, how long are they going to last?
That's a good point. They made it to the finals. We remember that. Lost to the Bucks.
That's what I mean. They can't put it over the top, So that makes it interesting. The West becomes a little bit more wide open because Phoenix is always kind of at the top. Everybody always just assumes they're going to be there. And if they're struggling, obviously that there's positioning there. Speaking of Golden State, Steph Curry dropped 41 last night. And I was watching some highlights, and I was thinking to myself, I was going to ask you this. I think we've already talked about this before. Is there a guy that moves better without the basketball in the history of basketball?
No.
The only other guy I can think of is Reggie Miller is another guy.
Hamilton was really good at that too.
Rip Hamilton. But I mean, God, he just moves so well without the ball. And then he can catch and shoot. He can shoot off the dribble. He's got that floater. I mean, he was driving to the hoop. He was jacking threes, falling off to the side. The guy's falling off backwards to the left or to the right and still jacks a three from 30 feet. It's just sometimes watching him, you just shake your head. Like, how's that even possible?
Well, you've said this, and I think this is about as true as it can be. Steph Curry changed the game of basketball forever, differently than Michael Jordan did. He changed the game of basketball. He basically, like what Ernest Hemingway was. He reset the furniture in the room when it came to writing. Steph Curry resets the furniture in the room when it comes to basketball. Nobody can be Michael Jordan, right? We used to go out into the park and try to do the up and unders, and you can't do what Michael Jordan does. But little kids can start chucking up threes when they're small. They can learn how to dribble. Right?
30 feet away.
Well, seriously. But that's something that if you're a kid that's 8 years old, 9 years old, you can start to practice that. And you can start to practice these wicked handles. Steph Curry has changed the game of basketball, and not just in the NBA. Junior high school, college, he's changed the entire sport. So when you ask me, is he one of the best to move without the ball? Dude, he's probably one of the top 5 greatest players of all time because of how he's actually changed the game of basketball. Magic Johnson didn't change how basketball was played. Larry Bird didn't change how basketball was played. But Michael Jordan didn't change how the game was played. Steph Curry's impact on the league. Think about this. He's changed how every single basketball player plays from the time that they're 8 years old to the time that they get into the NBA. Trae Young wouldn't exist right now. Brook Lopez wouldn't be hoisting threes. Nikola Jokic probably wouldn't be what he is, even without some of the input and the influence of Steph Curry, which, by the way, shout out to Nikola Jokic, Denver. Oh, this is a good team. I know that we're on the court yesterday, 30-13, tied right now with Memphis, number 1 in the Western Conference. If he wins his 3rd straight MVP, man, Mount Rushmore for this guy too. I mean, we are really in one of these places in NBA basketball and NFL football where it feels like we're in one of the great eras of all time for both of these sports because the talent level is out of this world, and it feels like it's just getting better and better and better. Now, if you're a Chicago Bear fan, you're probably not feeling that you've been overwhelmed by talent recently. You've been underwhelmed by the fact that your team is not
underwhelmed
good.
on wins for sure.
Well, that's just putting it mildly. But the Chicago Bears have a couple of things going for them in the 2023-2024 season, which if you're a Green Bay Packer fan, and I am, you should be extremely concerned about. When we come back, we're going to bring on a Bear fan, also the coach of the University of Wisconsin Lacrosse's Eagles football team, the WIAC Coach of the Year, by the way, Matt Janus. And we'll talk to Matt about an idea that's been percolating for me, at least in the last week or so, since Lamar Jackson decided he wouldn't play in a postseason game. I want to see what a Bears fan would say or react to this particular idea. I've got it in my mind. Stay tuned here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. We'll be back in 60 seconds with Matt Janus. Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices. Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Excuse me. Remember, you can't make someone love you. Can only stalk them and hope for the best. Here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Is that a new Taylor Swift song? You can't make somebody love you, but you can have them stalk you and hope for the best.
That would be a hit.
It would be a hit. I don't think she could do anything that isn't a hit, as a matter of fact now. I mean, she basically just has to speak words, and it's a #1 single.
She could fart into a microphone, and they would be a Grammy. Well,
that's an OnlyFans thing. So you have to find Taylor Swift on OnlyFans for farting into the microphone.
That's Taylor sniffed.
Oh, man. Hey, I will shout out to Morning Wood, who, and maybe it was Jason P1 Breacher, who thinks the Bears are still going to eat bear shit next year. Guys and gals, fans of the NFC North and Packer fans, don't count your chickens before they hatch, okay? Because the NFC North is changing quite a bit. Matt Janus is joining us, WIAC Coach of the Year for the Eagles, of course, and big-time Chicago Bears fan. Yeah, Matt, you know what? We kind of glossed over this in all the fast and furious talking that we have been doing. We've been hitting it up on social media so much. You and all the coaches do a great job. But again, congratulations. Your first Coach of the Year award. Very good.
Oh, well, hey guys, thank you. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty cool honor to be selected on by coaches in our league and guys that I have a ton of respect for. But really, I think when you get one of those awards, it's about your coaching staff, and that's really what it is. I mean, I got great people around me. I got great coaches around me, and so that's really, it's not me. I tell people all the time, I'm not sure I know what the hell I'm doing. I got great people around me. So that's really what that's a reflection of. It's a reflection of the staff and the people that I have around me.
Hey, well, Coach, before we get into the Bears, sorry, I have to ask this. This reflective of last night's game. At what point do you fire your kicker? At what extra point do you fire your kicker or make a change or go for two? I mean, honestly.
I don't know. They kept showing Jerry Jones. I was waiting for him to just do it, walk down there and do it. But yeah, no, I think, after the third one, it's probably either, you got to probably start going for two, or, and like in our case, like we kind of cross-train like a lot of our guys, and then special teams is huge for us. And so we have probably, I'm trying to think, like Kaiser Heltebrand was an all-state kicker. So he gets kicks in. Cade Garcia was actually our backup kicker on the road. And so like we like cross-train, obviously mostly for if like Ryan Byrne were to get hurt last year or something would happen like that. But we would obviously probably by the third one be looking to make a change or like you said, start going for two.
Well, if Ryan Byrne would have been in the building, if he would have been at Raymond James Stadium last night, they would have suited that kid up and put him right on the field. Ryan Byrne could absolutely have hit one of those 3 extra points. That guy just, you know what he reminded me of? Chuck Knobloch when he couldn't throw to first base anymore.
Oh, right.
I guess his career was over. I mean, he couldn't throw to first base anymore. He got the yips, and that was it. He was done for. Oh, Coach, it was a wild game last night, and I suppose we can just kind of follow on that trajectory, Chad. We've got our poll question up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, as well as our Facebook group page. Who do you think retires first, Rodgers or Brady? Because Brady looked bad. I mean, it wasn't all his fault. The offensive line was simply not blocking players for the most part. I mean, you saw so many times in which Micah Parsons and others were just walking to Tom Brady, and Tom Brady like getting rid of the football because he knew he was getting clobbered. But just based upon the last games for both of these men, Rodgers losing to the Lions and Brady losing to the Cowboys, who do you think, in your opinion, retires first?
I think it's Rodgers. I just think I think Brady has it's like an addiction to him. Like I think Rodgers can live without the game of football. I'm not sure Tom Brady can. And to go off kind of the way that he did, because I mean, in the Bucks, they are who we thought they were, right? To quote Denny Green, right there, like they sucked, and
Right.
they sucked all year. Like that's the reality of it, right? Like totally inept on offense. They can't run the ball. You got how old's Tom Brady now? 44. How old is he? 43, 44, 45. What do you throw? And I know they were down, but he throws it 66 times last night.
66.
And I know they were down, right? But like you had 12 rushing attempts. 12. Like,
Yeah.
and I know Parsons is good. Like, and I know that, but you got to take some off his plate. And I thought, getting, and you said it with the offensive line, I thought getting who they got Jensen back the center, right? Last night. I thought that was going to help, and it clearly didn't. And no doubt Parsons a freak, but I think Tom Brady kind of uncharacteristically missed some throws early on. And obviously, he just overshot it. I think like on the first 2 or 3 series, overshot guys, makes a huge mistake in the red zone. And I just totally inept on offense. And so like for me, like with that guy, like I don't know, my perception is Aaron Rodgers can just go, you know what? I made my money. I've had fun. I've enjoyed it. I played at the highest level. I was one of the best, and just sail off in the sunset. Where I think, like, to me, that's going to eat at Tom Brady, and I don't think he's going to play for the Bucs. I don't think it's going to be there next year. But it's going to be. I just feel like that guy has the fire to keep playing, and like that'll just eat him alive the entire offseason. Is that game?
His final game with the Patriots, which was not good. He left in New England on an interception. Really, I think fueled his return to the football field. And when he goes to Tampa Bay, we saw what he did in his first year. I still think, and Chad and I talked about it, he's one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league, right? Like there's not 32 guys that are better than Tom Brady right there.
He's one of the top 32.
Starting to get AARP ad mail. Yeah, so am I, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, somebody will give this guy a job if he wants to play, right? Like the Raiders could give him a job. I could see that. I doubt San Francisco goes away from a young kid in Brock Purdy or Trey Lance to bring in Tom Brady. I can't see that, especially after Purdy's performance so far. But there would be a potential job here, and I largely agree. Brady's addicted. Chad brought this up earlier today. Brady's addicted where Aaron Rodgers does it because he's very good at it. He's a very good NFL player, but he doesn't, I don't think, eat, sleep, drink, live professional football the same way that Tom Brady does. Matter of fact, 2015, Brady was asked what he thought about life after football, and he says, there is no life after football. It's death. Yeah. He says, football is my life. There is no life after football. So to that end, fellas, it could be Aaron Rodgers, and it might not be this upcoming season. Both of these guys could continue to play this season, and we could still see Rodgers retire first. But I want to go to the core of the reason, well, not the reason, but one of the reasons that I really was excited to talk to you this morning, Matt, because you're a Bears fan. The NFC North this year saw a lot of different things happen. The Vikings win the division, sure, and we knew they were a paper tiger the whole year because they just couldn't beat anybody big. They just couldn't do it. The Lions started off 1-6. They end up being 9-8. Really impressive season. Congratulations. Of course, we know the Packers stumble, and your Bears they were atrocious, but they made a lot of different moves. They made a lot of different trades. Chad, bring up the graphic that we've got here because I want to get Matt's thoughts on this. Lamar Jackson is starting to, right now, socially shame the Baltimore Ravens for not paying him, for not giving him his money. The Chicago Bears come into the upcoming season, according to Sports Track this morning, the latest numbers, with $115,990,265 in open cap space. They also happen to have this little toy called the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, I'll tell you, Lamar Jackson with Baltimore has made that team incredibly dynamic and the game plan for, I'm sure as a defensive guy, you'd agree. But if they can't keep Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley's not the option. That's not the best up. Somebody that I think would fit really well on the Baltimore Ravens would be the quarterback Justin Fields for the Chicago Bears. And if Lamar Jackson wants to get the bag and a team is looking to make a massive upgrade at quarterback, which the Bears still could be in the running for, I see a potential trade happening because it's out of conference. You're not in division. You're out of conference. I see a potential trade working with Lamar Jackson, who would be a perfect big city quarterback, go to the Chicago Bears, Fields go to the Ravens, not have to make John Harbaugh and company diametrically change their offense, give Lamar Jackson the money that he would want because the Bears have plenty of it, and then Packer fans, watch the fuck out, because if you got this guy, Lamar Jackson, running all over the field, this ain't Justin Fields. This ain't your mama's Justin Fields. This is a completely different animal. He won Heisman at 19 and NFL MVP at 23. The kid's young, plenty left in the tank. I don't know that anybody's really talking about this because I don't know that anybody really believes that Baltimore is just going to give up on such an incredibly talented player. But if, in fact, Matt, the Ravens want to use the franchise tag, that will become a problem for them. And we know that it will, because that's just how it works. What are your thoughts on if, and this isn't something, again, that we're hearing in sports, but what are your thoughts if the Bears were able to make a move like that? How much do you think that would change your franchise?
Oh, big time. I mean, when that guy's healthy, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, without a doubt. Now, that's the key part, though, is when healthy, right? And when he is healthy, and that's the key question. And obviously, like you said, you're going to have to fork over now a ton in guaranteed. You're going to talk about like Deshaun Watson type money. You look at the top 5 quarterbacks in the league: Wilson, Rodgers, Watson, Murray, and then I think Allen and Mahomes are kind of fifth and sixth there. But you're going to have to. I mean, I would imagine you're going to unload and pay him the most money in the NFL, right? Like he's going to take the biggest contract, most. It's probably deserving, but the question is when healthy, and right, and so you're going to fork out over a lot and guaranteed for that. I guess for me, like I would have to say, like, what would be the scenario? Because if it's Fields for Lamar straight up,
Fields in the number 1 pick, Fields in the number 1 pick, go to Baltimore. You get Lamar Jackson to go to Chicago. Plenty of cap space here. And again, I'm not trying to be this guy to just go all hot takery here. There's not many teams that can pull this off. There are just really not many teams that can pull this off. And I like Justin Fields in Baltimore because, again, you don't have to completely change your offense, right? Justin Fields does some of the things.
No, you get a better version. Yeah, you're getting a better version of Huntley, right? Like Huntley, you're getting a better version of him, right?
Yes,
and a better runner, a better quarterback with that. So, like you said, you're already kind of keeping rolling with what they're doing on offense. But I don't know with the number 1 pick in there if I would do it. I know that's crazy. I know that's crazy. If it was Fields for Jackson with maybe like some later round picks in that, I would be more willing. But you're giving up Fields, so you already gave up Smith to them, right?
Yes,
who was a top 10 pick, right? Well, I think he was a top 10 pick. So you already lost him. So you lost the value on him because they only got back like a second rounder and I want to say like a 5th rounder.
Yeah.
Right. So you lost the value on Smith. Justin Fields was a number 11 pick or somewhere around there, right? And so if you give up that now for Lamar, I just don't think like the picks, at least the value of the picks you're getting back if the number 1 overall pick goes in that, especially when you have to look at the draft now and say, okay, we have a quarterback. Is he Lamar Jackson? No. Is he that type of level yet? No. Could he be to that level? Maybe, right? He's still growing. But I think if you have that number 1 pick and you're not going to take a quarterback, right? Like I think Will Anderson is the guy they should take, and I think they can get him down maybe a few more picks in the round. So you have the Texans who need a quarterback, right, at 2.
The Colts at 4.
The Colts at 4 and the Raiders at 7, right? And to me, like, I know everybody's making a lot of deal about Bryce Young from Alabama. That guy's that guy's like Kyler Murray to me. Like,
yeah, he's too small.
Eventually, people are going to figure out how to rush him, right? Just like they do with Kyler Murray, and he's going to become ineffective. So the guy to me is Stroud from Ohio State, right? Like that's the guy that everybody wants. So I just feel like with that number 1 pick, you can trade down and potentially get, you're talking more. I think more value as opposed to just giving it away for Lamar Jackson. Then you got to go and sign them, and then. My personal feeling about the NFL is I'm leery about the big quarterback contracts. Like, you look at like Mahomes, right? He wins the Super Bowl on his rookie contract, correct? And like, some of these guys, you win it on the rookie, like Russell Wilson won it on his rookie contract however many years ago. And the guys keep paying that dude money and you get so tied into that. So pretty with the number 1 pick, you can trade down, you get more picks. I think they have 8 in the first round, or 8 in this year's draft class. Not in the first round. That'd be huge if they had 8 in the first round. Huh? You have 8 picks. Maybe you go and get 2 more this year, then 1 next year. You have the money, and like we talked about last year, of trying to approach it the way the Jacksonville Jaguars did, in trying to improve your team and put pieces around you that can improve the team. You spend that money that way, and you spread that money around as opposed to just giving up A1 and that for a quarterback. Now you still got to find pieces to put around Lamar, right? Like you lose that number 1, you lose another draft pick. What are you going to do on defense? Because their defense is atrocious. You guys know that they've been giving away everybody. Anybody that can rush the passer, they didn't like. Even like Akeem Hicks, they don't sign him. They got rid of Mack. They got rid of Smith. Like, there's no defensive pieces there. They got the safety Jackson because they signed him, but like, you need to get guys in there to be successful. So if it's the number 1 pick is involved, I'm saying no.
Okay, I think that you're making a point for a lot of Bears fans, and I don't know, again, that this is something that the Bears would traditionally or necessarily consider, but I will tell you that there is an old adage, the best defense is a good offense, and I could see the Bears looking at a superstar like Lamar Jackson because, again, Chad talks about it as a narrative thing. I know it as a business. This is about selling jerseys, making money. If the Bears can do 2 things, which is get a quarterback that is, let's just say it better than Justin Fields, and they're able to make a big splash in the market. Again, I don't know that it makes sense, and from an overall team perspective, you've given me a number of reasons to think that it probably doesn't, but that then makes me think that the Bears are absolutely going to do it, because if it doesn't make 100% sense, and it looks like it would just be a big move to get a lot of publicity, it could be a thing. Listen, this is why, Matt, we love the NFL, and even though I know that during your UW season, you're not concentrating on the pro game as much, it's really fun to talk to you about it after season because, again, you've got such good takes, and I think that you're probably more correct than I am. Rob Dog from Stoddard and both Matt from the Recovery Room Bears fans have said I'm crazy, that's a stupid idea.
Dave, I don't think it's stupid, like, as long as the number 1 pick's not involved. Okay,
what about the number 1 pick of the 2nd round, 3rd round, and 4th round? What if you give up your 33rd pick, your 67th pick and something else, because they're going to pick.
I would say, all they would be doing would be giving the Ravens their pick back, because if they traded the 33 pick for Chase Claypool, so so they lost that pick already. But if you just give I would maybe look at the 2nd rounder, but yeah, it just can't be. I just think there's too much value. You give away the 2nd round pick for him with Justin Fields, and then you can add, then you trade down and you get more with that, dropping that number. I'm all for that. I just don't think the value overall is to give Fields and a number 1 for Lamar, for a guy that Baltimore is going to need to either pay or get rid of, right? And so eventually, I'm all for it. I don't think it's a stupid idea at all for both teams, really. For both teams, like you said, I want to hold on. Hey, I want that number 1 pick for a little bit. Like we worked hard to earn that number 1 pick.
Hey, being that bad ain't as easy as people think it is. All right, Coach, it's been great having you on as always. Thank you so much for being with us. Your good buddy, former head coach of the Eagles, Mike Schmidt, will be joining us again tomorrow. So do us a favor, tune in, and we'll look forward to talking to you next Tuesday on the show, man. Go Eagles.
All right, thanks, guys. Go Eagles. Talk to you.
The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest Mortgage Team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest Mortgage Team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Hello, this is Professor Fission for Nuke and Nuke Light, the world's first nuclear beer. Brewed and nuked in 1956 and recently found in Warehouse 14. How's it still fresh, you may ask? Well, thanks to our friends Cesium-137, Stromium-90, and Plutonium-239, these beers will stay fresh for another 90 years. Not only does Nuke and Nuke Light have 10 times the kick, but you're sure to be a hit at the party because it helps your urine glow in the dark.
Nuke and Nuke Light. Pick up a case today before it melts through your grocer's floor. And Duluth Care. Yummy.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. As Vince Lombardi once said, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up. Now here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Yes, the great Vince Lombardi, Packer head coach, greatness defined. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, Bucks quarterback Tom Brady, both of them are aging. Let's put it gently. Both of them are aging. Chad, our poll question this morning at the Sports Carney on our Twitter feed and our Facebook group page, which of these guys do you think retires first? Looking at the Facebook group page, 6139 say Brady. Looking at our Twitter feed, nearly identical. 60.9 to 39.1 say Brady as well. I disagree. I agree with Matt Janus. I agree with you. I think that Aaron Rodgers is the guy that's going to retire first. And Chad, last night we saw Tom Brady. For those that are just tuning in now on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Twitch, and those that will be listening later on the podcast, we saw Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just get absolutely embarrassed, waylaid, if you will, by the Dallas Cowboys. No scriptwriter could have made up for all of the lack of, well, let's just call it, they couldn't have made up for the ineptitude that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed last night. They really and truly couldn't. Chad, for those that are watching us, let's put up that Tom Brady piece, because I think that Brady, I think that Brady, from a physical standpoint, probably still a teeny bit left, but from a mental standpoint and from an ability to really inspire those around him, I think he's kind of done. I really do. Dallas beat Brady for the first time in Tom's career. Brady was 35 for 66, so it's not like he still can't chuck it, because that's more passes than he's ever passed for. I think that's the most attempts he's ever had in his career. But he looked out of sorts. He looked kind of scared to me when he floated that pass into the end zone in the first quarter. I think that was the second or third drive there for Tampa Bay. That was the first red zone interception he had since, I believe, Brock Purdy was born. So it's been that long since he has had a red zone interception like that. And I just don't know how, after what we saw yesterday, what we saw from this entire season, he can come back. But this is where Tom Brady is. Listen, he's as much of a counterintuitive thinker. He's as much of a contrarian as possibly you are. He might come back just to force the issue and see where he is as far as his physical abilities and where he is as far as his ability to win football games. I don't know that I would want to hire him, right? Like, if I'm another NFL team, it's not that he's not great. It's not that he still can't play a little bit. But when you bring a guy like Tom Brady on, or you bring in any aging superstar in any business, an aging attorney, an aging whatever it is, an aging doctor, you're taking a certain kind of assumed risk, because these people are not what they used to be. Your faculty's slow. This is what happens when we age, right? I just don't know if he has enough left in the tank. I'm not sure that he walks away on his own. But again, that's why we want to ask this question. Do you think that Brady or Aaron Rodgers retires first? I think that because of Aaron's abilities and interests outside of football, he probably would walk away first. I don't know that it's this upcoming season for either of these guys, but Brady looked done. And I think that's what we were texting back and forth last night. He looks old now. That's just what it is. He just looks old.
Yeah, I don't think he comes back as a Buck. I think you can almost guarantee that. So then you start thinking, okay, what teams need a quarterback? We kind of mentioned it about the draft. Obviously, Houston needs a quarterback. The Colts need a quarterback. The Raiders need a quarterback. Out of those three teams right there, more than likely it would be the Raiders that he would
only team
go to.
Yes.
I don't think he would want to go to the Colts and play for Jim Irsay. I doubt he would want to go to Houston.
And who's their coach? And who's the coach of Houston, right? Like, right. I mean, they don't even have head coaches yet.
So those are the thoughts that Miami's another. What about Miami? Because you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Waddle, you've got great weather. That would be another great. Obviously, if you're in your retirement age, Florida's the place to go. Because with Tua, and I agree with you, has been a question mark for me for quite a while whether he's ever going to play again. And honestly, I hope he really truly considers that and doesn't rush himself back, because he's in a serious situation with these multiple concussions. This is no joke. And hopefully he's looking into this and researching CTE and taking it seriously now that we have more information and it's not being hidden from everybody. There's more out there to draw from. I think he really seriously needs to look at this before he makes a move back. So would that open up a position in Miami? That would be a good place for him. Obviously, with the Raiders, you got Devontae Adams. That's attractive. It's Vegas, right?
You
So
play inside. You
play
you're
inside.
former offensive coordinator for what, a decade and a half. The Miami Dolphins, and I just caught this news note this morning. As a matter of fact, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, has already confirmed that Tua is going to be the starter next year. How can you even confirm that? How can you confirm that? I don't know that an independent neurologist or an independent physician has cleared him to play. He wouldn't have been starting this upcoming week had Miami beaten Buffalo, which they almost did. Listen, that's another thing that I think would have worked out a couple of years ago. That's the tampering violation that Miami got involved with, right? That's one of the reasons Brian Flores got fired,
right?
Or was asked to leave that particular job because he didn't go along with the get along to bring this guy in. Where Brian Flores might not have been a huge Tua fan, which I can't blame him because I wasn't a huge Tua fan. I don't know that you can go back to that well. I think that if Tom Brady gets a job, and we had first said, and this was many weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the only two places that seemed to make any sense were Frisco and the Raiders. If Tom Brady goes anywhere now, it feels like it's going to be the Raiders. I can't see him going to the Jets, even though the Jets would possibly have an opening at quarterback. They're not sold on Zach Wilson yet. Right. The Giants job just got locked up by Daniel Jones for at least next year. They'll pick up that fifth-year option and maybe franchise tag him. I don't know if he gets a long-term extension or not. We'll see. But when you look at the number of opportunities that are out there, there are few. And some of the teams, I would say the Houston Texans and some others, are going to be looking to reset that whole clock and go back to a rookie contract if they feel that a CJ Stroud is the guy from Ohio State and you're Houston, and say Chicago doesn't go quarterback one. Well, there you go. Then you've got your guy. Somebody's going to make a mistake and draft Bryce Young, which I agree with Matt Janus on and basically all NFL pundits. He's too small. He's just too small to play NFL quarterback for a sustained period of time. But Brady's options are dwindling. It's not like it would have been 5 years ago. It really isn't. This is a different Tom Brady. And let's face it, 46 years old, man, I mean, the cracks in the armor start to become a lot more noticeable, right? Like you start to feel things a lot differently, as you've mentioned. And these hits, they're the same hits that guys like Brock Purdy are taking.
Yeah, and it's cumulative, too. That's the other thing I don't think that you think about. And he should think about it. It is a cumulative thing. And maybe part of the reason why he doesn't retire is a lot of times after you take yourself out of that, such an intense kind of job like that, then things start to really weather quickly.
You betcha.
Maybe that's partially in his mind. Joey's checking in, asking if I put all the money on the Cowboys. I did not.
I wish I would have.
I had a hard time betting that game because of my emotional, wanting Tom Brady to lose, hating the Cowboys. I just stayed away from it completely. I was actually surprised that it turned out the way that it did. I actually had, I was telling everybody at work, take Tampa in the under, and I was off. But
I agree. Under 45.5 was the total. You would have hit it. It was 45.
The under part got it, but I thought Tampa would play much better. And I agree with you guys on Bryce Young. I actually think CJ Stroud's probably the guy as far as quarterback goes that people are going to be looking at when it comes to the NFL draft. The other place that he could have possibly thought about, or I know guys up here in the Northwest would have thought about, would be going to Seattle. But I think, Smith has locked himself into that job for at least next season as well.
Agreed.
So Brady has really got a narrow window. Again, I don't think he's going to go unless he has no other options. He either stays with the Bucs, which I would think would be his best option if he doesn't want to go play at Indianapolis or go play at Houston. So to me, I think you're right. The Raiders, that may be the place. I don't think San Francisco's open anymore.
So Matt from the recovery room checking in here said, Will Levis, QB from Kentucky, is a dark horse moving up the draft like Daniel Jones did. That could be scary because Mitch Trubisky and Daniel Jones, Duke and North Carolina, respectively, both shot up in the NFL draft. One of them's out of the league, essentially, playing backup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Jones, listen, he made himself a boatload of money in that victory over the Vikings. He really did. Daniel Jones was very, very good and did himself a ton of favors this last weekend. Tom, it feels like, has one place because Tampa Bay basically at this point, even though they eat a $35 million dead cap money, he's got no guaranteed contract if they don't put it in writing before March 24th, the start of the new league year. Okay, so he's a free agent. They can't franchise tag him. That's part of the contract that they had, right? So he's out of there. He's not going to come back to Tampa Bay. That thing is over. That ship, like that big ship that's out there in their field, that thing sailed. That ship has sailed. The only potential place now I'm really looking at is Las Vegas. And I don't think San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan and company, Don Lynch, I don't think they're stupid enough to move away from a kid. Not to say that Brock Purdy is their future, but when you've already drafted and spent all the resources to get Trey Lance and you've got your Mr. Irrelevant now 6-0 and the kid went for 4 touchdowns in a playoff game, for Christ's sakes. I don't know that you move off of that for an aged Tom Brady who is sailing balls into the end zone wildly for no particular reason and not being able to hit like receivers in a very simple route concept. This is a fascinating story, and this is why we love the NFL. It really and truly is. Now, coming up this weekend, we have got more great NFL football. Tomorrow on the program, Chad, we're going to be bringing back Mike Schmidt to the show, Northern State Wolves head coach and a great friend of mine. We'll talk to him about Tom and Aaron, see who he thinks retires first, and get his take on the NFL postseason so far. The Bucs are playing tonight on TNT against the Raptors. Winners last night, 132-119 over the Pacers. Hopefully Janus plays again. Joey, I'll find out if, in fact, he is playing so you can make your bets legally at betus.com. And before we go, thanks again to our supporting sponsors down there at the O'Neill Law Firm, Sean O'Neill and Company, bankruptcy, family, criminal defense, and, of course, Joe's Helping Hands Landscaping. Guys and gals, we appreciate you and all you do for the program. Chad, have a great day, and we'll be back bright and early tomorrow here on the Sports Carnival.